Okay, let's take a look at this question, which is an approaches question, looking at the behaviourist approach. So this question says, a young woman says, when I was 5 years old, I was at a party and a balloon burst with a loud bang in my face. Even after all these years, I cannot bear to go into a room where there are balloons. They terrify me. Using your knowledge of classical conditioning, explain why the young woman is terrified of balloons. Now you can see straight away I've highlighted here classical conditioning. Just to remind me that's what I'm having a look at. And as soon as I see classical conditioning, I think of good old Pavlov. Question's not asking me about Pavlov, so I wouldn't really mention him in the question. But that just reminds me that I'm talking about the dogs, the salivation, etc., etc. That's what I'm talking about. I also take a look at the amount of marks this question's worth. So it's worth 4 marks. Here you can see that it's asking us to explain, so that's description. And I'm also applying it to the young woman. So I'm doing 2 things. So I'm going to assume in my exam, and you should be doing this too before you answer any question, that there's 2 marks for description and 2 for application. Okay. Now I know as well that classical conditioning, one of the key things that I need to talk about is association. So I am going to start off my answer saying classical conditioning is learning by association. And I've got a mark. My next mark for my description and all my application marks come for going into detail of what's happening during this. Now I'm going to draw this as a diagram and explain, but in your exam you need to be writing this as prose in paragraphs. So let's have a look. Remember, in classical conditioning, we start with our unconditioned stimulus causing an unconditioned response. This is a natural thing that that person or that animal does. So in this case, the natural thing, our response that it's been talking about in this question is all about fear. They terrify me. What initially causes that fear? Well, if you have a look, that's loud bangs. So in my exam, I would say that initially, before conditioning happens, the woman is scared of loud bangs. The loud bang is the unconditioned stimulus, and the fear is the unconditioned response. Also, at the same time, we need to talk about the other stimulus that happens here. So we have another thing going on where we've got balloons. So balloons initially cause no response. So they are the neutral stimulus, causing no response. So that's balloons. And this is all, remember, before conditioning. This is natural, okay? This hasn't been learned. Then we need to have a look at when she's at the party. So again, you can talk about the conditioning took place whilst at the party. So during conditioning, again, we're going to use this word association. The 2 stimuli, so the unconditioned stimulus, and again, I'm going to remind them that that's the loud bang, and the neutral stimulus, balloons, become associated with each other to produce the unconditioned response of fear. And just to remind us on here that that's during conditioning. So that means once this association has taken place, once this woman is out of the party, she has now associated these together. So the neutral stimulus now is the conditioned stimulus. We've learned it. It's been conditioned. So the balloon causes a response. It goes from an unconditioned response to a conditioned response, which is fear. So the balloon, because of that association, the balloon has been learnt to cause the fear. So that's what you would talk about, but you need to talk about that in words. And you do need to say all of this in order to get, or be sure that you're going to get those 4 marks. Because although this is 1 mark of description, this is 2 marks of application. So hopefully that makes sense. So if you haven't got full marks in this question, can you please now go back and try and embed all of this in the form of written prose?